This is Breachers, an online multiplayer game in which you and your team must plan your assault or orchestrate your defense through strategic and intense close quarters combat. This PvP military shooter is straight up Rainbow Six goodness in VR, and it looks to give Firewall some competition over on the Quest and PC side of things. We are late on our review for this and we're sorry, but we think we have some stuff to add to the Breachers conversation, so stick around and give us your thoughts as well. Hey guys, it's Chris from the VR Grid and welcome to the channel. If you like this video, give it a like, and if you're interested in more VR content from us, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you don't miss new videos as they drop. And if you're looking to join our VR conversations, feel free to leave a comment, or even better, join us each and every Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific here for the Virtual Boys podcast. Now, as a massive fan of the Rainbow Six Vegas series back in around 2008, I absolutely fell in love with the more team-based strategic side of PvP shooters. Sure, I played all the other famous shooters, but it wasn't until Vegas that I found my game. Rainbow Six Siege would follow, and although I put countless hours into that as well, the very video gamey locked classes was an issue that always kept it from resonating with me the way Vegas did. Enter Firewall 0 Hour on the original PCVR back in 2018, and my love of Vegas and VR came together in what would become my new VR obsession. Now, Firewall wasn't perfect by any means, and there was a lot of room for improvement, but it nailed that strategic team-based dynamic, where friendships were born out of complete strangers in the lobbies of this simple shooter. Since then, there have been many VR shooters, but none have embraced that same team-based dynamic, where you and your team talked and worked together, or you lost. Until Breachers, that is. Even more Rainbow Six Vegas than Firewall 0 Hour, Breachers fully embraces its 5v5 strategic shooter roots, focusing for now on the classic attack and defend mode, where one team must defend an objective from attack while the other works to penetrate their defenses and take those objectives. Firewall took a very simple approach to this game mode, with hacking a laptop being the objective, offering defenders mobile jammers to place and defend as really their only line of defense outside of their weapons. Breachers, however, looks to go for something much more robust, borrowing heavily from the Rainbow Six Siege series and giving defenders more defensible gadgets in order to fortify and defend what is, here in Breachers 2, two bombs that are set to explode. Defenders are given the option of additional gadgets to purchase alongside their weapon loadout and consumables such as door blockers, trip mines, and proximity sensors. In return, attackers get the option to purchase gadgets like breaching foam, a cloaking device, and a remote drone. The players can fly ahead to scout out enemy areas and player locations. I absolutely love these additions, and when combined with the ability to grapple up and down walls, it definitely takes what Firewall 0 Hour did to the next level, offering a lot more gameplay depth and tactical options for both sides. Now, what I didn't love, and this might vary on player preference, is how Breachers handles weapon loadouts. In a similar style as something like Pavlov, here players on both sides are each tasked with purchasing their chosen loadout along with any consumables and gadgets at the beginning of each round, and allowable funds are based on performance. Now, personally, I really dislike this approach as I feel it creates a rich get richer and poor get poorer situation, as those who don't die at the end of a round not only get to keep their weapons and any unused gadgets and consumables, but they can also pick up and keep any fallen players' weapons and gadgets, in addition to a good payday. Where on the flip side, those who died during the round get little more than a meager sum of money and are often left grabbing a pistol and maybe one gadget. Now, I found that this had a tendency to create unbalanced play sessions and also beat down the morale of a losing team. But not always, so maybe it's just my preference. Additionally, I really miss the inclusion of any progression system based around unlocking weapons, attachments, skins, or any other gear, not to mention player attributes, as I am a sucker for carrot on a stick unlocks to keep me going for just that one more round. Now, the choice Breachers has made does eliminate any balancing issues with longtime players having high-end gear that new players simply can't get, but admittedly, that's the hook for me with the progression approach. Now, as for weaponry on offer, Breachers goes for a slightly futuristic, unlicensed approach, offering up a nice selection of pistols, SMGs, rifles, and shotguns that certainly look to be based on real-world weapons, but slightly, let's say, gamified, both in design and color scheme. This also includes consumables such as frag, incendiary, smoke, and flash grenades. Weapons are also upgradable and are done in the beginning buying phase of each round by simply buying a weapon and holding it up to purchase attachments. Attachments on offer are satisfactory, but are still limited at this time with no ability to add scopes, which is likely because of limitations on the Quest, which is unfortunate. Gunplay wise though, Breachers is a blast. Guns feel good and track excellent with very little occlusion when on the quest too, and Breachers seems to attempt to straddle the middle ground of sim and arcade, opting for manual reloads but without the need to charge the gun after. Additionally, time to kill is definitely not as quick as something like Rainbow Six or Firewall, as players do come standard with some decent body armor and can choose to buy health syringes. However, a well-placed headshot is game over, so if you run and gun solo, chances are you won't get far. Like I said earlier, Breachers is a game about teamwork and communication, and for me, the reason that I love this style of game so much. That being said, I know it's not for everyone, as the main complaint back with Firewall 0 Hours was that players who died quick felt like they were always waiting around for the next round, as this classic attack and defend mode is a one-death elimination with no respawns. Again, I like this though, as the stakes are high, strategy is needed, and the game's pacing is very intentional. However, to keep the pace up from those other games that I just mentioned, Breachers does do away with mid-match lobbies, giving a brief buy period for loadouts in which players can immediately move into place. In addition, the placement of attack objectives are immediately given to the attacking team. This, when combined with time rounds and matches, do move quicker than in other iterations of this style of game. Though, I would have maybe liked to have seen the objectives being highlighted as a result of, say, a pricey purchased gadget for the attacking team. As in something like Rainbow Six Siege, the discovery of these objectives could be half the challenge. Additionally, while attack and defend is certainly the focus of Breachers, it should be noted that there is also a team deathmatch mode for those looking for something more straight ahead. This was also a lot of fun and gives players unlimited funds to buy weapons, but at the time of this review, it only has one map and certainly does not feel like the focus of Breachers. And speaking of maps, this is also where Breachers definitely excels at, and yet at the same time, it's also where it needs the most post-launch attention. At the time of this review, Breachers has only 3 maps to rotate through for the attack and defend mode, which certainly brings up the question of when is a game essentially still in early access? Breachers desperately needs more maps in order to keep its lobbies full, and while the game plays extremely polished, having only 3 maps is kind of brutal. Thankfully though, the 3 maps are great maps, offering 3 very different flavors. All 3 maps are also pretty large and include perimeters outside the primary building for attackers to circle around and choose their entrance points. This often includes basement and rooftop access points, which can be breached in a multitude of ways. And did I mention how much I love that you can rappel up and down buildings? Objectives move after each round, which keeps things fresh, and maps are filled with tons of interesting choke points and places to hide, making for not just fun defensive rounds, but also opens up great opportunities for attackers to coordinate breaches, fake out attacks, and run flank maneuvers. Something the cloaking gadget also helps with. Anyways, these 3 maps are fantastic, and even after maybe 10 hours of play, I'm only barely starting to feel like I've got them down. But Breachers really does need some more maps ASAP, and maybe one more team-based mode would help to keep the game fresh and players coming back for more. Visually, Breachers is a very polished title and looks very sharp in the headset. Obviously made with the Quest 2 in mind, the PCVR version looks almost identical, reflections and all, and is a testament to the design team when it comes to the Quest version, offering a visual style that is certainly simpler, though I wouldn't say it's cartoony either. This is a game that has obviously been highly optimized, and it adds lighting flourishes and texture details where it can, while keeping the game running silky smooth no matter how hectic that gunplay gets. Now, Breachers will never be confused for a premium VR title, as easily seen by its smoke effects, but it has chosen an art style that often opts for stylized rather than compromised, and it felt great to run around inside whether on Quest or PC. Sound-wise, Breachers brings its A-game as well, offering some of the better positional audio that we've heard in a VR shooter for quite some time, both in gunfire and footsteps.
Right here. There's a guy right at this staircase.
Okay.
There, he knocked me out. He knocked out my drone.
In a tactical shooter such as this, knowing where your enemies are sneaking up on you from is absolutely crucial. And while playing Breachers, I could almost always tell where players were coming from, how fast they were moving, and what floor they were on. Hell, at one point, I knew there were players silently crawling on the other side of a wall I was on just by the whisper, quiet ruffle of their clothing. Now, there's no proximity chat here, so I was able to yell out their position to my teammates and reposition accordingly for the inevitable rush on our objective. And moments like this happen each and every round, much due to that on-point positional audio. Gun sounds are good and have a nice level of detail to them, though I wouldn't say that they were among the best I've experienced, as they could be a little punchier for my taste. That sound mix though is rounded out here by a simple thriller action soundtrack, which I actually really enjoyed, as it gave the matches a bit of a cinematic feel, but sat far enough back in the mix and it ebbed and flowed enough so as not to get in the way of hearing anything crucial. And that brings me to my final thoughts and review score. As a huge fan of the Rainbow Six franchise and later Firewall 0 Hour over on the PSVR, Breachers caught my attention immediately, as this is my type of shooter. I love slower paced tactical team-based shooters, and Breachers absolutely delivers, bringing even more Rainbow Six ideas into VR than Firewall did, and doing it in a polished, fun, and absolutely addicting way. This may not be for players though looking for non-stop action, as Breachers is definitely for those gamers who like to work as a team and prefer strategy over respawns. My only concern really here is content, as Breachers is almost early access in its offering of 4 maps, only 3 of which are playable in the game's main mode. That being said, Breachers is priced right, and it certainly doesn't play like an early access title, and it's polished, addicting fun that likely has enough going for it to keep players going until the new maps drop. The VR Grid gives Breachers an 8.5 out of 10. For fans of Rainbow Six or Firewall 0 Hour, this is a must-buy. Anyways guys, that's it from us for now. If you've already picked up Breachers, what are you guys thinking of it? And if you're looking at Firewall Ultra as a future game, how do you think these two compare? I'm Chris from the VR Grid, and as always, I will catch you on my next video.